Braxcast time once again. This is the 24th episode, and this is a really exciting one for two reasons. The first reason I want to get right into it with the concept art book giveaway that I did. I announced this, I think, two episodes ago. It ran until the end of July. I got two responses that were in on time. It was really hard to pick between the two of them, but it ended up going to Rocky. I sent it out on the first of this month, and they should be getting it by Monday. It was a very nice response to the question why you're a fan of the Rippaverse. And so I do want to do giveaways in the future, but only have so much financial access. So if you want more giveaways, more stuff like that, consider becoming a paid subscriber on the Substack. But of course, watching, liking, subscribing, all that stuff you do for free is much appreciated as well. But we've got a lot of exciting stuff in with the Rippaverse. So Goodyng began its first week of fulfillment, and I got my copies in. I did a review of Goodyng the Polymath. Really liked it. I think this would benefit from being a free issue miniseries to really flesh out and tie up all the plot possibilities that this book presents as a one-shot. So this is cover A by Cannon White. I forget who does cover B, but cover B we've got. Then we've got cover C right here. This is the foil and the emboss. So this is a really nice cover. And then this is cover D, who I think it's Mark Evans' cover. So this is really nice, and this is the mass print one, only $18. So this is about 76 pages, so it's a lot thinner than an ISOM 1 or an ISOM 2 would be, or even Alpha Core and Yaira, because those are ISOM 2 is 112, and then all those others are 96, and this I think is like 20 pages short. So it's very thin, but the paper is high quality, and I really like this book, even though it could have delved into things a little bit more deeply, which is why I think a free issue miniseries is in order. But Rippaverse is unending with the amount of stuff that they're releasing, and one of the things that got a surprise release was the Rippazine #2 collection. So there's going to be fulfillment in September. Already sold $80,000 free copies within its first week of just being like dropped overnight. Like I wake up and like Rippazine 2, and we've got a 16-page story by Cannon White and Eric July. That's Saoirse, Irish name, so it's a bit confusing, but this is a very like femme fatale redhead who has the LF certification that Salvage has. So in Forest Park, there are I think 3 people. So then we know who 2 of them are, who have the authorization to use lethal force in their private investigation operations, which you see, this poster. This has got 2 CGCs for a collector and a standard. And it seems like they're doing a seasonal release schedule with the Rippazine, which I definitely want to get into, because the second thing is that there's an interview coming up with Andrew, the executive editor for the Rippazine, who also is employed at the Rippaverse. But I want to show off this interior art for Saoirse. So the 16-page short story from Saoirse is going to be one of the many exciting things we'll get to talk about when we talk about the Rippazine. But I think without further ado, we're going to transfer into the interview between myself and NDA Andrew, I believe, and we will see you there. Hello, guys. This is the interview section of the Braxcast, and of course, the person I'm interviewing today is creative manager and executive editor of the Rippazine. Since the Rippazine #2 is launched its collection this week, let's dive right into that. And of course, hyping it up is going to be really easy with a character like Saoirse. So why don't you start talking about anything you can talk about the inspiration behind Saoirse and what you like about her as a character?
So Saoirse is one of a handful of characters that Eric had kind of rattling around in his head when it came time to figuring out what exactly we wanted to use these kind of smaller short stories that are kind of a testing, launching platform for characters that maybe we think might get some audience buy-in, get some genuine interest, but aren't necessarily easy shoo-ins like, say, Yaira mostly was, or Bloodruth. And so it's far easier to say, okay, let's drop a 13, 16-page short story for these characters into the magazine. And that can be a fun exclusive for that magazine. So that creates incentive for buy-in on that. But also allows us to continually flesh out the world and things like that. And Saoirse um, is one of the lethal force certified private investigators in the city of Forest Park. Now, if anybody that read the first issue of the Rippazine and read the introduction of Salvage, he mentions that there are three of them. So Salvage being one of them, Saoirse being another. They're all very different in terms of their characterization, and that was very deliberate. And I told Eric this not too long ago after finally reading Salvage, reading the script when I was going through and editing that. Um, I was like, really a noir detective PI story? Like, can Eric write a noir detective PI story? Because he's never really, to my knowledge, and I've been part of his community since like 2016, 2017. So for a good long while now, I had never really heard him, to my recollection, mention anything about having much of an interest in that genre. And by God, I read it and I was like, wow, okay, so he can write a noir detective story. But the difference with Saoirse is she's not a noir detective at all. So that you have that classic noir vibe with Salvage, but Saoirse's something entirely different. She has that femme fatale vibe. She's not afraid to use her feminine wiles to her advantage. She knows she's gorgeous, and she has quite the extensive skill set. Now, I can't give too much away. All I will say is that those two characters are completely different from each other. Saoirse is not just a copy of another existing female redhead character out there that some people might be comparing her to. And maybe just at first glance, surface level, oh, you see a really hot, redheaded female. She's got black leather on, and she's got a gun. You're automatically going to draw some comparisons there. But I think once fans get their hands on Rippazine #2, which that collection is live right now, I encourage everybody to go grab that. I think they're going to see the differences there, and she's a very distinct character. And man, Kane and White on interiors is what the world needs more of, because his work on Saoirse is just off the chain. It's absolutely out of control. I really think people are going to dig this short story by a long mile.
Oh yeah, no, I really enjoyed Salvage, and the worst part about that was when it ended. It ends on that like cliffhanger. You just want more of it.
Yeah.
So I anticipate that with Saoirse, and again, Cannon White's a great artist. He's done cover art for all the Rippaverse books. He's very talented. And of course, being the art editor, he's really uplifted all of the art for all the books. Yara #1 and Goodyng are the first books that the fans have. Of course, you've seen Isom Free, you've seen Horseman, so you know what Cannon White is doing for the art assets there. And this is the thing is that there's just this consistent release schedule, and this is what gives you the Rippazine editor such a great opportunity to keep like hyping that up. I think doing this like seasonal thing where you have like one coming out every season. You had like spring, and now Rippazine 2 is coming out in September in the fall. So it seems like you guys are settling into like being able to do that seasonally. So I think the Rippazine, especially you can get into like grocery stores, you can get it through like the post office, like an actual magazine. I think it's like a great way to build interest for the fans. And then you have, these short stories where you can test out these concepts and characters, like you said, because something like an LF certification, like Lethal Force, is really world building, but it's not like, is it as much of a shoe-in of an idea like the Alpha Core is? That's what, doing those shorter stories is allowing you guys to figure out. And I think it's something that the fans really want because it's really interesting. The city of Forest Park being this all city state that can just say like, yeah, you guys can, kill people if you're doing your private investigator work. And that only being valid in the city state just makes you think about like how much more complicated things are. So a lot of this world building is subtle. I mentioned that in the Goodyng review, but that just leads the fans to fill in the gaps and have that sense of intrigue that makes you want to the next issue that much more. And that's what I really love you guys really fostering in comics. So, but we'll keep it on topic with the Rippazine. So with people to interview and the like stuff like the Forest Park Gazette, how much decision do you have over that? Is that something that rises organically? Do you have a schedule with how you do it? Yeah, speak to that, please.
So leading up to, and we're trying to get the zine to a point where it's kind of at least a quarterly release is what we're shooting for. Um, and we're not going to bite off more than we can chew. Eric says that all the time. We're going to do things as they make sense. But right now, that's kind of like the estimated release schedule that we'd like to do ideally for the zine, because it also allows us to kind of slot this nice little, you know, obviously the nice shiny metallic collector's editions are like $20, but a $7 magazine is an easy, that's easily slotted in between some larger, maybe more expensive releases. We don't have to necessarily go all out with the marketing quite as much, but it's really enjoyable to have kind of this, not filler, I want to make a distinction here, but fill in content. So filler, I look at the same way that writers would use the term fluff. So, anybody that's, gone to school and had to write an essay, like they needed to be X amount of words, X amount of pages. Okay. So I have X amount of like actual valuable content here to work with. And then I'm going to fill in the rest with useless crap, right? That's not what we view the zine as. We view it as something that's meant to be at once an easy jumping on point, so an easy springboard for newer fans, people who maybe they are just now hearing about the Rippaverse, or maybe they're just like attempting to get into comic books. And I'm very thankful for everybody that gives us a shot, especially if they're jumping in on something like the Rippazine, because it's a project that means a lot to me and it means a lot to the entire team and everybody that's been a part of it. But it's also at the same time meant to give longer fans, so people that have maybe been with us since ISOM 1 or ISOM 2, are fans that are really dedicated and invested in this world that we're building. It's meant to give them things that are little bits of insight and info and there are more nuggets, I guarantee, in the zine than people are picking up on just yet. I know because I put some of them in there myself. So there's a lot of fun stuff going on in here in terms of determining what the article stuff is going to look like. That we tend to have a kind of a powwow get together between myself, the other editor, Caro, who is phenomenal. She's a great writer herself, and she's also a phenomenal editor. Huge shout out to her. We get together with her and with the Saska sisters and a couple of the other members of the art team to kind of bang around ideas like, okay, what articles do we want to throw into here? So far, and this is something that we have a benefit by being completely independent, because we can be a little more reactive and pivot far more easily than, say, a big megacorpo would. We saw a positive response to some of the articles and sections and segments in that first issue of the zine. And so we're like, okay, so the fans responded positively to that. So that seems like an easy shoe-in for the next issue as well. But what are we going to do with that? How are we going to expand on that, right? And then I'll get together with, say, Kanan to bang out ideas on what I want, like the full page spread splash graphics to look like the stuff for Lillian's Hot Tea or Michael Copper's Gentleman's Club and things like that, and sort out, okay, what's going to get across the general vibe and tone and attitude of this character that we're presenting in this article. Because those things, like especially with Lillian and Michael's segments in the zine, those give actual genuine insight into the mindset of those characters. The things that they're saying might seem menial to some, but if people are paying really close attention, you're actually learning quite a lot about those characters just by reading those short one-page articles. And that's a lot of fun to do, because there's a lot of creativity that goes into that. And huge shout out to everybody that's been contributing on the writing front for those.
Oh yeah, no, I loved the Flores Park Gazette. Like Michael Copper, like knowing that like okay, this guy definitely is a playboy, and that's the mindset. Like you go back into thinking like Ice One and Alpha Core,
#1, where he has a much more prominent role in Alpha Core #1 than Isom #1. But you get to think like, okay, this is like what's driving this guy, and you get to think like what the dynamic of the relationship between Lillian and Michael is based off how Michael has, this view, this mindset with women. And that's just, just Gentleman Club. And it's also just really entertaining to read that. Like, I just like, it just felt like he has this air of personality about him. And like Lillian's hot tea, she's talking about other people, but the way she does it, like you get the sense that, she likes to gossip, she likes to stick her nose in these sorts of things in this very like, unique, I'm not sure if unique way sort of, but like a way that's like, I don't know. It just makes makes her feel more mysterious as a character.
It also kind of tells you that she likes to kind of compile information.
Yeah, and then it's like, well, what she's doing it for? Like, why does she need to know what Gooding's first name? That's not something that everybody knows. Or why does she need to know like where all the accepts are at any one time? It just thinks like, she's doing things that are like they're definitely plotting. They work through other people. That's what I loved about Alpha Core 1 is that they can get into fights, but they want to operate through other people and all these shell corporations to really like cover their tracks because they don't like to get their hands dirty. Like they can do it if they have to, but they're going to avoid it because they just want to be in the Bahamas while they have other people plunder and pillage and steal. And that makes for some really good storylines. Of course, you got Chuck Dixon who's writing this stuff. Very, very absolute genius of a writer. And like all the pacing, because, these guys are so good at writing, it's also but you're getting all this information and it's really like, it's really subtle. So like, there's stuff that like you miss if you're not like looking for it hard enough. And that's what I like about the Rippaverse is that, this is, launched, I got in on Isom 1. So it's just, rising up as we're getting into it. And
Thank you for sticking with us so far.
Yeah, well, you've given me like every reason to, because everything comes on time. You guys just care about making as much content as possible, and that's why the Rippazine exists, is because you guys want to keep the fans in the loop. And that's why I love that you guys saw that people like the first one. We're making a second one, and we're getting it out within the same year that the first one launched. So it actually feels like a magazine that can inform people. But yeah, I think let's talk about what you like working for the Rippaverse, the attitude of the company, because you were talking about that earlier about how you can pivot, and that's one of the things that I personally love is that with like the steroid hamsters and the pigeons, you have bird's eye view at the end of the first Rippazine. So like fans attach themselves to like the pigeon and the Alpha Core 1 trailer, and that becomes a meme, and you guys lean into it, right? And the steroid hamsters with running the servers, and they got to a point where stuff isn't crashing all the time, and you guys lean into those memes and you play on them, and that's why the fan base is sticking with you guys, in my opinion. So yeah, but let's talk about what the Rippaverse does from a company perspective to build and maintain that fan base.
So as far as what I enjoy about working for the Rippaverse and just the company in general, so even if I didn't necessarily work there, I love the commitment to fostering a community of fans that are here for the entertainment, like, and the entertainment of like the actual product, right? And one of the greatest things about being part of this company is that everybody in leadership has this attitude of wanting to ensure that everybody that works either alongside them or under them, depending on what the department is, there's this purveying attitude and desire to ensure that everybody is getting more out of it than just a paycheck. Now, that sounds like pretty easy words, right? But there's actually something valuable to that, because take Kane and White, for example. Yes, he's our lead art editor. He is, if there are corrections that need to be made to a panel or an entire page or colors or what have you, he's going to be the primary guy to make mention of that. I assist with that as well, but that is his primary responsibility. However, he goes above and beyond that in that he also works very closely alongside these artists to just elevate them on the whole in their style. So he's not trying to get anybody to draw Yaira the exact same way he draws Yaira. He's not trying to get anybody to draw Shadran or Salvage or any other character in our universe the exact same way he does, because he understands, as an artist, everybody has their own unique style. So what he does is this incredibly powerful analytical mind when it comes to looking at art. And I've seen him break it down, and I've chatted with him one-on-one about it before, where he looks at what the actual organic style is for a given artist. Say, even somebody like our lead illustrator at the Rippaverse, Igor, or Deborah, or Joe, or even our concept artist, Marcos, who, I mean, all of these artists that were already very talented have improved by leaps and bounds, because he looks at what their style is and he says, okay, how can we refine this style so it's still clearly you, but it is the better or best version of you? Because I'm not trying to make you draw like me, I'm trying to make you draw like the best you. And it's so cool to watch. And for myself specifically, um, I'm grateful because I work underneath both Eric and Caro, and you know, they are assisting with like my own leadership development so I can continue to grow, so I can continue to be more effective leader, more effective manager, more effective in all these different facets of the business. And that allows us to just be more effective as a company on the whole. And so there's this kind of familial attitude and strong community attitude, really, about working at the Rippaverse, because everybody wants everybody else to succeed.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So yeah, and I definitely feel that as a fan that they just genuinely care about having a good work environment and having a good environment for the fans to engage with. And this, one of the things, the customer service has always been great. Kara with answering the
Yeah.
tickets.
Shout out to Kara, she's the
Yeah,
best.
yeah, exactly. Then the warehouse team, everything gets shipped. The fact that you guys have the custom mailers and everything's bagged and boarded and all that stuff. So there's just it's a top down commitment and everything that you guys do to make sure that when the customer goes to Rippaverse.com and wants to engage with whatever services you're providing, it's mostly just getting the comic book and comic book accessories to you. All that ends up pretty well. You guys have had some growing pains here and there, but for the most part, I from what I see from the people who are genuine fans of this, they have very positive things to say. They like buying and being customers, and that's why people keep coming back. And you guys have an understanding of that. You put the code of ethics in every single book, so it's just this commitment to establishing this canon of comics that people can get invested in, and just using the enthusiasm that the fans pour into the fandom financially, and by doing fan art, stuff like that, making fan content like I do, and just using that momentum to get more comics out to the fans and just make it a fun sandbox. And that's what people are really itching for in the modern times, because a lot of that has really gone away. And I don't want to get into like the culture war stuff on this, but a lot of people have disengaged from what you would usually find at your local comic book shop, and people
Sure.
still want that content. And that's what Rippaverse is providing to people, and people are really gravitating towards it. And that's why this fandom exists. And the the Rippaverse as a company understands that. But let's go into the final topic, the Rippaverse fandom itself. And of course, we've mentioned the fans. There's none of this would exist without the fans. There's no fandom. There's no property if you don't have people who are going to go to the local comic book shop, who are going to order it, who are going to talk about it, who are going to hype it up, who want these stories to be part of the collective consciousness of humanity. Then it just doesn't exist. And the Reverse certainly has a fandom. It's growing. It's getting more content to really sink its teeth into. And as that happens, it gets more and more developed. One of the things I love is the fan art. And as you get more and more characters to make fan art of, it just gets more better. The IR #1 fan art contest is some like really fantastic stuff.
Oh, there were some incredible pieces. That was
Yeah.
not a fun contest to judge. Same with the prior ones, because there's so many talented artists
Yeah,
out there
but
where it's
yeah,
like,
no,
gosh, who do we say is the winner now? Like, these are
yeah.
all fantastic.
Yeah, so it's just like I love stuff like that. I love the fact that ever since it was like announced with Vice #1, because I remember people were doing fan art before we had even read a single panel. People were doing cosplays before a single book had shipped. during that con season. So there was such so much enthusiasm, and while not everyone's stuck around, the people that are there are so hyped and invested in this book. And as like I said, more and more books come out, people are getting more and more invested because we know more, right? We know 2 of the 3 people have the LF certification. We know that Flores Park is a city state. Mike Barron in his little I guess essay to the reader at the beginning of Goodyng actually gives some insight into what the world is, because he gives his take on it. And that was really interesting to read his perspective. So just each book that comes out just really enriches being a fan. But the whole thing is that I do Braxcast. It's a small thing, but the people that I talk to, they're kind. I did a giveaway. Why you're a fan of the Rippaverse? I got some very thoughtful responses. So there's a lot of intelligent, smart people, and they want good content to consume, and they have it, and they're really hyping it up. And that's what I love about the fan base, is that once you find something that you like, you just have this positive response, and it just makes more positivity in the world.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, the Rippaverse fan, but we say all the time, Rippaverse fans are the best in the world, and it's not even close. And that's not just lip service. Because there are a lot of, you mentioned earlier, the fewer people are going into the local comic book shops and going and grabbing the books that they otherwise historically would have. There are a lot of great indie alternatives out there, fantastic ones. Most of them are one-offs or two-offs, right? In terms of like maybe they're doing just a series that's just one character. Maybe they've got like 2 characters banging around. But Rippaverse fans specifically, and this is what we kind of very deliberately targeted as our core desired audience, are the types of fans that want more than that. They want to get a expanding universe to get invested in. The wonderful thing about an expanding universe is because you start to see all of this organic diversity of ideas and diversity of tastes, right? Because I could use myself as an example. When I was going to the local comic book shop and grabbing, comics every week, I wasn't getting every single release out there. There were characters that I just didn't care about, wasn't interested, but there were characters that I was. And so with the Rippaverse, that's what we're trying to foster. We immensely value, our fans they're diving in and grabbing as soon as we announce a new project, they're like, all right, I'm in. Like I'm there day one, right? But we also understand and equally value our fans that maybe they weren't interested in the premise for ISOM, but Alpha Core caught their eye. Or maybe ISOM and Alpha Core didn't really interest them, but Yaira caught their eye. Or even further, maybe Goodyng was the first book that they dove in on, right? There's going to be so many different kind of amalgamations and permutations of characters and books that our fans are going to be interested in. Maybe somebody's first book is going to be The Horseman when that releases soon, right? Or maybe somebody's first book is going to be Bloodruth. And who knows? This is a wonderfully organic part about creating an expanding universe, because you never know truly. You can do market research, but you never know truly what's going to all of a sudden be a breakout hit. Maybe Bloodruth becomes our most popular character, or maybe Horseman does, or maybe one of the characters that we haven't even announced yet. It's so fun to think about and watch in real time the debates happening. And this is a wonderful thing about the Rippaverse fandom, because I'm seeing in real time the things happening that I used to love and enjoy about comic book fandom. And that's the debates, the discussions. Oh, what would a fight between Shadron and Yaira look like? Or, Yaira and Santuan, or Santuan versus Shadron. You got those, back and forth, like who's stronger, who's going to kick whose butt type of arguments. And you see that this fandom is organically fostering relationships within it over comic books. And that's the beauty of it, because all of these people are getting invested and doing things like what you're doing, creating a podcast, right? They might not otherwise have done. Or maybe they're booting up a YouTube channel that's dedicated to doing like maybe lore videos or things like that, right? And that's so cool to watch and so cool to witness, because what that says to us is that we have fans who are genuinely invested in what we're doing. And that galvanizes us, and that encourages us to just continually try even harder to ensure that they remain invested. because they're our bread and butter, and we're a company that's by the fans and for the fans. We say this all the time. We loved being fans of comic books ourselves, and we missed that. So we said, okay, we'll do it ourselves. And we're getting to see now all of our fans experience that same thing. They're getting that joy, whether they're just following along with ISOM and the ill-advised arc so far, or whether they're getting every single book. It doesn't matter. That genuine investment does matter, whether it's one character or all of them. And the Rippaverse fans are the best fandom.
No, I agree. And I'm one of those, like, I'm here for every book because I just love this universe aspect. You have these multiple converging storylines that take place in the same world, and then they build and meld with each other. And that's why a character like Bloodroof, like, I'm not a horror guy, but like, I find her character really interesting. Having read her Dokumon card, I know her character is even more interesting because, you know, of how unique she is in terms of her power set. And it's like, I'm really excited to believe Bloodroof #1 on that basis. Not that, like, I'm the biggest horror fan, but I know that in Bloodroof #1, I'm going to find out things about the Rippaverse that I didn't know before. And that's
Absolutely.
that's the whole part of the intrigue. And that's what, you know, people really want. And that's why, you know, any fandom is going to want. They want, you know, stuff to be, you know, to nerd out about. And that requires a sense of intrigue, like genuine interest. And you only have interest in something if you want to, like, find out what happens next, or you're getting enriched by you know, the story, you know, philosophically, spiritually, or something like that. But, you know, for a lot of stuff, you know, for comic books, it's like finding out what happens next, finding out the origin of the character, finding out the motivation of the character. Like, why doesn't Batman want to kill people? Or you know, why did Isom quit before Isom #1? Right. You know, that intrigue is what keeps you reading next and next. Or, like, you know, what makes Shadron tick? Like, why does he have such a easy time just ruthlessly killing people? You know, you gotta, you know, find out more stuff. Or you got to get more books. You find that out, and then, you know, debate as each book comes out, and then you get to the point where you actually find that out, and then, you know, that's a really interesting thing. But, you know, like I said, if you don't have you know, storytellers that have an investment in telling an interesting story, then none of this can happen. And that's what you guys are bringing on. You're bringing on, like, you know, Mike Baer and Chuck Dixon. Eric July has been, you know, honing his skills as a comic book writer and using that to build more intrigue. And that's what I love, is that, you know, you guys want to create that intrigue, and the fans are engaging with that in a really beautiful way. So that's really what I have to say. So we've hit everything that I wanted to talk about. Thank you for coming on. This was a really interesting conversation, and I
Thanks for
want
having
to,
me, man.
I want to interview all the Rippaverse staff members. But having you be the first person, especially with the Rippazine 2 collection launching, and you being the executive editor on the Rippazine, is like really great for the fans. And I love your mindset with the Rippazine. So yeah, the link to follow your Twitter account will be below, along with Rippaverse.com. So, you know, check that out. Nerd out. Of course, I do the podcast every week where I cover, you know, all the stuff that you guys are doing over at the Rippaverse. So anything else you have to say to the show? If not, then we're gonna be signing off.
I'll just say that I genuinely, and the whole team, I'll speak for the whole team on this, genuinely appreciates the enthusiasm and the vested interest that our fans have in what we're trying to build here. We thank you for giving us a shot, because we're nothing without the fans. We're wholly independent. If the fans aren't interested in what we're doing, we fail. And so we thank you and genuinely appreciate all of you. All of the writers are dedicated to building out a world that does feel interconnected and leaves in little nuggets and layers and things for the future. That's Eric, Mike, Chuck, the Saskas, everyone. And we can't wait for you all to see what we have coming down the pipeline. So thank you. Thank you for everything.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. Like, comment, subscribe to all that, to my channel, to his channel. I'll have his Twitter. I'm sure you'll find his YouTube presence there. But yeah, we're signing off. The Braxcast is out.
Okay, hopefully you guys really enjoyed that. And if you did, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll see you on the next episode of the Braxcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the Braxcast. Be sure to like, comment, follow, and subscribe to keep up with the Rippaverse.